All right. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Outsiders podcast. I'm one of your beautiful bald hosts, Alex Cohen. I'm joined by Michael Girdley and Chris Bakke, and we're just three guys on the internet you may or may not have heard of, going to talk about and joke about some news stories today. So first up, Stripe may go public next year. Chris, why don't you take us through what's going on over at Stripe?
Wait, can we stop first? Can we stop first and get a Peloton update? There's no close on your Peloton, Alex. Like, this is very disappointing to me. Like, I do appreciate that. By the way, audience, before we got started, I browbeat Alex into turning his camera so we could see the Peloton because he had hidden it from me. So is this going to get me kicked off the pod? Is that what's going on?
I'm going to replace you as a host with the Peloton.
maybe Trung is available.
Let's turn over to this money-losing Peloton who can give us an update.
All right, tell us about Stripe. Let's go.
I think Stripe is trying to save the IPO ecosystem in 2023 to 2024. So they told all their employees, current and former, that they're planning to help employees get liquidity for their equity. So it seems pretty unclear in terms of how they're going to do this, but it seems obvious that they would probably go for some sort of a direct listing. They've enlisted Goldman Sachs, our favorite bankers, and I believe Morgan Stanley to help with this process. But it sounds like if a direct listing or an IPO fails for Stripe, they will find some other kind of vague private transaction is what was talked about in the news to get employees liquidity. Yeah, I think this makes sense. I mean, every private company that's that big, the employees want cash for all of their hard work. It's really hard to run a company for 10 years and be like, we're doing great. We're worth $63 billion, but you guys can't afford houses. So, I mean, there's probably a ton of pressure for that.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit more technical where they're actually coming up on their 10-year exercise options or exercise periods, I believe. So all of the shares from these early employees will actually be invalidated if they go past this mark without having a liquidity event. And so they either have to do a tender offer internally or buy back shares or do an IPO or something. But there's actually, this happened with, I'm not an IPO expert at all, but I believe this happened with Facebook and Airbnb. And so this is this common thing where you have this 10-year timeline. And if you're not successful by then, you have to figure out how to make your employees whole with their stock options.
And your venture funds are probably also very interested. Those guys have big payments to make on their, Tahoe ski homes. And if you don't get carry. Oh, did I just say all that? Anyway, yeah. That was just what I was thinking out loud.
If you're listening to this, if you're one of the tens of people that listens to this podcast and you work at Stripe, I've heard that Stripe shares are internally worth $25 each. I will buy one share of Stripe from you for $30 so I can update my LinkedIn to say that I was a pre-IPO investor in Stripe. This is very important. Please get in touch. I'm in the DMs. Email me.
I had a VC buddy, a friend who had a small micro fund, and he would go around buying shares of these random startups like Facebook and stuff pre-IPO when they would trade on the secondary markets, and he would list himself as an investor in the company. He had seed funded Facebook, and it's no, he just paid it 10%.
The people who are actually going to get raked on this are all of the FOMO investors last year who bought Stripe at a discount. And I'm putting air quotes in for everyone who can't see my video. They bought Stripe at a discount. You saw all these SPVs going around and syndicates at $100 billion valuation. This is half of what Stripe is actually worth. Half of what Stripe's going to IPO for. This might have actually been 2021, but all these people poured millions of dollars into buying Stripe secondaries at a huge premium. And I actually think Patrick and John are amazing, and I think they've built a big company, but they missed the 2020 IPO window. There's no coming back from that now. They missed the greatest opportunity in the last 10 years to go public and see their company valuation skyrocket to $250 billion. And now, they're going to go public at 40, 50 billion, perhaps. I mean, when you look at some comps, it might not even be that high. So we'll see what they get in the public markets.
A $40-50 billion value creation in 10 years, what an underachievement. Just a huge disappointment by these guys. Two immigrants.
But that's going to be the story. That's going to be the story now. They missed the 2020 window, and they're
the $40 billion doesn't matter. It's that they were once worth $93 billion, within the last year or two.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
That'll be
it's not a $40 billion value creation. It is a $53 billion value destruction.
Yeah, it all went into one of their 7 castles in Ireland.
What's the name of the guy? Oh, I have an Ireland joke about this because both founders are Irish, right? What is what's the name of the Irish guy who's like the really brash MMA fighter? You know what I'm talking about?
Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
He's on the box of Lucky Charms, I think.
Okay, so here's the Irish joke. So look, we had a chance for the two greatest Irish immigrants ever to be the Collison brothers when they were valued at 90 billion. Now that they're down by 50%, we have to go back to Conor McGregor as the greatest export ever from Ireland. Like, what a disaster. Can Ireland catch a break?
100%. And when separately we have to, in a future pod, we'll cover Conor McGregor's whiskey brand, which tastes horrible, but is valued at a ton of money. We'll get into that later.
For a second. I don't drink, but I got excited.
All right. I think we beat that one. Continuing on, this is Michael Girdley, by the way, because we've gotten complaints that Alex and I, because we both have nasally, high-pitched voices, no offense, Alex, sound the same. So anyway, I'll announce myself with authority each time I have a story to bring.
And I'm just going to start talking a little bit deeper for you, okay?
And I'll talk like this. Okay, so 2 days ago, finally, as the podcast's man of the people, who knew me, Mr. Patriarchy, could be the man of the people. But finally, the DOJ steps up to sue Google for their dominance in the ad market, just like they did with Microsoft back in the day, AT&T, all that kind of stuff. Thank you, DOJ, for doing your job just 15 years too late. We're very grateful. But they and 8 other states are suing Google over its purported domination of the online advertising market. And they have assessed that Google is an unfair monopoly and they want to break it up. They allege that Google does 4 anti-competitive things and has for the history. Number 1, acquired competitors, and they've done it in order to cut people out of the market. They've forced people to adopt Google tools, locking in website publishers to its newly acquired tools, distorting the auction, so making them uncompetitive, so prices going up, and then manipulating those things as well in order to generate as much money for themselves. So I'm ready for you guys. As here, the man of the people, please defend Google that they don't deserve to be broken up, given they only have a mild 97% of the search market globally. Okay, on that note,
they seem like good people. They seem like good people. I think Google deserves to be one big happy family. People biking to and from the offices in Mountain View. It's very quaint. I don't see why the government needs to intervene here.
So, would you like to hear the greatest case in point of why the Google monopoly deserves to be broken up?
Sure.
Yes.
The founders, because of the monopoly, are so rich that at least one of them is so rich that he has gone and built the identical design of house in like 9 different places around the world.
Wow.
And travels between them.
Which
one? He has built an identical house for the reason that he wants to throw money at the problem of knowing how to walk around the house when he goes to different places, whether he's in wherever. Just imagine the most beautiful places on the world. That is, I don't know that's true, but that was a rumor I was told, if that's what they done.
This is one of the best rumors I've ever heard.
They should just make that the whole lawsuit. Just write that on one page, put my face on it, submit it to the judge. Let's go, break up the whole thing.
I love my house, but not enough to go build the same house if I'm that rich in 7 different states. 0 chance. I want a custom house in every state. Do you think he has the same exact car at every house as well? Like he has to have a year, model, mileage, same exact car.
It's that stupid toaster looking car that's like the self-driving Google car, I'm sure.
It's more than that. When you're that rich, you don't just have the same car. You go get the same chief of staff and butler cloned. So you have the exact same person working at each one of your houses. So you have a custom Jeeves no matter where you are. That's really rich. This fly around in a helicopter, that's for losers.
So real talk. I mean, do we think that Google should be broken up like this? Like, do they have, you think, enough authority over the ad space that this is warranted by the DOJ?
1,000,000%. Yeah. Like, here's the greatest self-admission of guilt. In one of the articles that I read about this, Google said, hey, we will voluntarily split our ad business and put it outside of the search engine business. So they'll put it up and have it report up to Alphabet as opposed to be in the Google business. That is basically the equivalent of like a drug dealer going into getting arrested and going in there and saying, oh no, that was not my cocaine. That's exactly what that is. That's exactly what that is. So
It's the equivalent of Peloton being so powerful that they say, we're going to separate our seats. Like, we're not going to sell our bikes with seats. You can stand and ride. And we know so many people are going to stand up and ride these bikes regardless. Like, it doesn't even matter. We'll have seats as a separate entity, pedals as a separate entity. And like, that's how powerful they are. So yeah, I mean, they probably deserve this.
I don't know. I feel like no one's built as good of an ad platform as them. Like you would think free markets and capitalism. And if someone could build as good of a search, sorry, not ad, but like just search generally, like no one's built good search. And so who do you go to that's not Google? That's not Google's fault that they built such a good search engine. That's our fault for liking it so much.
Are you telling me that Twitter advertising with their 1 in 7 Grant Cardone ads asking me to invest $100 in his next real estate scam is not as powerful as Google? How dare you?
Oh, man.
Chris, can we have a quick sidebar about Alex? It appears our third co-host is a Bing user, and we may have to talk about this.
Big Bing energy.
Okay, back to our
here.
regularly scheduled program.
Oh, man. Well, we can talk about Google later. Why don't we talk about TikTok sending out a stern warning to remote employees who don't live by an office that they might lose their jobs if they don't show proof of residency near one of the locations. I feel like that's worthwhile to probably dig into.
Like most great podcast hosts, I didn't read the full article. However, I think what this is it's an HR thing. I actually think that this is this actually happens at almost every company. What happens is you have a global workforce where you have to pay taxes, you have to pay payroll taxes, you have to have the sort of subsidies set up correctly. And so if you have an employee who is living in or supposed to be paid in California, but is actually living in Washington, you have a whole reporting shit show with those states, you have tax shit shows. And so if you multiply, this happens at every small company, if you multiply that across thousands, tens of thousands of employees, like with TikTok and ByteDance, I think that that's what this boils down to, but I could be wrong. So if anybody read the last half of this article and disagrees with me, definitely chime in and let me know.
Routinely in mentoring, by the way, I quote, there's this famous small business book called Pay Yourself First. And basically what it does is it makes you invert your accounting to where you should, instead of paying everybody else and then counting your profits, you say, okay, I'm going to make 25%. And then you figure out how to make a business around that. And but I quote it all the time. I've never read the book, but I don't think I need to. The whole book is a good tweet. I don't need to.
That sounds. I'm writing all this down. Wait, keep going. We're getting a free masterclass here.
Girdley, you're teaching a course or mentoring people on business advice and giving them a book to read. I love it. That's perfect.
Well, I mean, I understood it from the title. I don't, I don't need to read the book. Who cares?
Oh, man. Well, it's funny. I was talking about this in a group chat, and I'm just going to say it out loud, and we'll see if this angers some of our listeners. But I believe, after seeing the last 2 years, that HR is a zero interest rate phenomenon business organization. It is a bunch of made up jobs and a lot of people who I'm not entirely sure what they do. And I think the majority of it should be outsourced to BPOs, and companies should not have 300 person HR teams in-house. All the compliance, all the taxes, all the onboarding, all the offboarding, it does not make sense to me that you need to pay full benefits and have all these people in-house to do that at a company. Maybe I'm wrong.
Look,
I don't think I'm wrong.
Look, who is going to coordinate the free massages? If we don't have 300 people in our HR department.
Alex, do you think the hummus is just going to show up by itself? Is that what you think? The office hummus platter just shows up magically? No. We value our HR colleagues.
Okay, I'm sorry. I regret talking this way after all the pizza parties I've had over the years.
As the old fart on the podcast here, who's lived through now 3 recessions, I will tell you that HR gets more activity and energy during the recessions, because guess what they're doing a lot of? Figuring out how to spend less money.
TikTok day in the live videos. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's a lot. There's HR is, goes from being this focus to where it was how do we hire a bunch of people to how do we optimize our work staff and laying people off.
Have you ever heard of one story where someone had sexual harassment internally or some misogyny or toxic workplace, and they were my HR team solved it for me? I've never heard that story. all you hear about is, oh, HR didn't do anything. They read the complaints and they threw them
You're
out.
never going to hear that story, because if HR is good at their job, they're going to have everybody sign like 12 NDAs and they're going to bury it under the rug, which is where it deserves to be. As, a mega business owner, that's what you want your HR team to do. And so that's what they go off and go do. It's as simple as that.
And even if I say this out loud, it makes sense to me that you would outsource that part of your company to an independent firm whose job is to review those cases, and their incentives are different aligned than the incentives of the HR team internally. So anyway, I'm just going to go and continue to hold that opinion that I think most HR teams are too bloated and there's zero interest rate phenomenons. And I think this is what's happening with TikTok.
I think this would be a different story if Alex wasn't working for a healthcare company. He was working for like a BPO company or a PEO company. He'd be like, yes, HR is the backbone of every corporate development. So all good. Okay. Can I go next? I got this Microsoft deal. Or am I dominating the podcast like I do?
No. Jump on it.
No, we like it.
Yeah. All right. So next story, Microsoft has invested billions of dollars into what appears to be the world's greatest demo, which is OpenAI, and extends the partnership there. So Microsoft said that today that it's extending its partnership with OpenAI, the startup behind the art and text generating AI systems like ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and GPT-3. By the way, just as a quick aside, I hope they take some of this money at OpenAI and spend it on a marketing person. Maybe steal somebody from Apple. Those guys know how to name stuff. Like, I can't even pronounce these dumbass names. Like, you're getting $10 billion and I can't even say the names. Like, come on.
Wait, anyway, what can't you say? ChatGPT?
Yeah, that just rolls off the tongue. Yeah, totally. Like it's
a tough name.
Girdley is the last name. Just rolls off the tongue.
That money. What's happening is Sam Altman's pocketing a few billion and then building a few identical houses across the country. That's what the money's for.
Well, we agree. I have some good jokes about that, but we did agree not to pick on any particular people, so I will just keep reading the article. Okay, OpenAI will remain okay, so this is why this sounds like a Ponzi scheme. Listen to this. OpenAI will remain a
wait, hold on. You have thus far called OpenAI a demo, and now you're referring to them as a Ponzi scheme. I just want to call that out. Keep going.
No, I'm saying it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. Slightly different.
Okay.
Well, that's what our HR told you to say so that we don't get sued.
Yeah, Mirko's over here trying to fill out the paperwork and get you to sign an NDA after we end the pod.
Mirko has tried to fire me so many times, but then he recruited this dancing monkey with the little symbols, and that guy wouldn't work as hard. So, OpenAI is a capped profit company, and as part of the model, backers' returns are limited to 100 times their investment, or possibly less in the future. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Microsoft is going all in on AI, wants to use it on Azure, wants to use it on all this different stuff. Bing, Alex, because you like Bing so much, it'll be and put in there and go from there.
Love that.
So anyway, that's the core of it. They have invested before. The New York Times says they put $2 billion in back in 2019 to 2023 and have been really a backer there. So anyway, there's more details about this whole thing, but like Microsoft is like going hard into AI.
Yeah. I mean, ChatGPT or OpenAI is a super interesting company. We talked about them last week. We don't have to go back into that stuff, but their shit's cool. I mean, just interacting with ChatGPT and using it in fun ways is super interesting. I threw a startup's getting sued by one of their investors, and it was posted on Twitter this week. And I took the complaint, the PDF, and I pasted it into ChatGPT, and I said, summarize this for me, and it spit out. They did X, Y, and Z thing. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't have to go read this entire complaint and go figure out a summary on my own or like understand what these legal terms meant. So I think the software is super cool. It doesn't surprise me that they're getting as absurd of a valuation as they're getting.
Have you seen how frequently ChatGPT is confidently wrong? Yes. Like people will say, hey, ChatGPT, what's 3 + 4? And it'll say, it is 7. And then the person will say back like, no, it is 8. And they'll say, no, it is 7. And then the person will say, well, my wife says that 3 + 7 is 8, and my wife is never wrong. And then ChatGPT will say, I'm sorry, I'm still like updating my model, but I'll take that into consideration now knowing that your wife is never wrong. I think people are just like messing with this thing, and like behind the scenes, like all this training data is just getting like fucked with by a million different people, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
It's basically like hiring a sophomore college intern who's home for college after summer and has just learned enough to think they know a lot more than dad did and are like going to lecture them about all these books they read in the first 2 years. But it's going to say it to you incredibly confidently and be totally wrong a good 20% of the time, which I think is kind of the problem with the whole product. It's like you can't really use it for anything mission critical because you're not going to trust it at all. Like, do you really trust it?
But here's the question. Do you get more accurate information searching for something and reading a random fucking person's blog? Like, is there actually a good source of truth on the internet when you go on Google or Bing in my case, and you search for something and you click the first link? Like, how do you know that that's true? And so I'd wager ChatGPT is more right than the majority of Google searches.
I hear you there. I don't know. I usually just go to Chris Baki's Twitter tweets, and I just do the opposite of whatever it says.
Yeah, I learn everything from Trung's threads. If I need to learn about a business, I don't go to Wikipedia. I go to Trung's threads.
What is the deal with Sriracha? How was it created? You know, he's going to teach us.
I have a long lecture about Sriracha and what's wrong with it. Anyway, so I think what's interesting mostly about this is not the first order of what's going on with Microsoft and AI. It's two things that are very interesting. Number one is supposedly rumors are that inside of Google, like everybody's freaked out and like the founders are back in. They flew in from their identical houses to like with their 8 different butlers that were cloned, and like they're supposedly being brought into strategy meetings. Which, you know, if you have a guy worth $14 billion in your product strategy meeting, you know he's going to be in touch with reality. So that's number one. And then number two that I think is really interesting is, where is Amazon? Like, nothing from Amazon. Like, when have you ever heard of those guys to be this far behind something that's real? Like, that's what's super interesting to me is like, okay, we're the smartest guys in the room and they're not saying anything. It's like, okay, like there's something to watch here.
Or they're just being really secretive and cooking it up behind the scenes.
What I thought was the smartest thing I've heard, Amazon does a lot of smartest stuff, but I don't know if you guys heard this story, but when, you know, crypto and blockchain started to be really big, all of these CIOs would call the AWS head and be like, hey, what are you doing for blockchain? We want to implement blockchain in our thing. Like, it's super hot. And the guy, and I forget his name, but the guy who was running AWS had so much confidence that he went to these CIOs and he said, we can't really figure out how to use this for real either. I mean, you could play with it if you want, but like, why don't you just use a database?
I remember
like that was, how many people had that level of confidence to be like, we don't know if the emperor has clothes on. It doesn't really look like it. And we're just going to ignore it until we figure it out. Like, that's what he did.
I know.
From the hottest trend.
I think if my memory serves correctly, from 2 months ago, and I have memory of a goldfish, his exact words were, we have found no practical application of blockchain technologies yet. And I remember reading that and being like, that is the funniest shit ever, after you have like people shilling crypto on Twitter for the last 2 years. But you know, we all thought we were dumb during the last 2 years when, I mean, sounds like Girdley, you put your money in crypto, so that's on you. But like, I didn't touch it and I thought I was dumb the entire time. And it just, money kept going up and Bitcoin and ETH kept rising. And I was just like, oh, am I losing out? And now it's all crashed back down to, I mean, I actually think reality is when it all crashes to zero. It's not there yet, but I don't think we're too far away.
Yeah, you know that there's still downside in the market because Solana is worth more than $0. That's how you know.
No, Chris, there are real applications like monkey JPEGs being built on the Solana blockchain. We must protect them.
I kind of want to buy one of those original, like, what were they called? Like the crypto bros or whatever, like the very first NFTs. I'd kind of like to own one so I could delete it.
The Bored Apes?
Yeah, I bought a Bored Ape so that I could delete the JPEG from my computer.
Just have a YouTube video of me just like trying to delete the private key for it. Like, peace. This is gone forever.
Oh, man. Well, let's talk about if eggs were on the blockchain, would they be as expensive as they are today? And I think the answer is no. But it turns out our next topic is about eggs, and they're so expensive these days. It's because there's a bird flu going around, and I don't know. You have like weird senators saying that it's because of price gouging on eggs, but what's actually happening is there's a bird flu going around and killing a bunch of U.S. based chickens, and so the supply has gone down and the price of eggs has skyrocketed. And so now you have people crossing over to Mexico and smuggling cartons of eggs back from Mexico to the US, and literally like the border patrols seizing all of these eggs. And eggs are so expensive these days that folks are literally driving to Mexico. I guess maybe from San Antonio. You guys are pretty close, but
Alex, we told you this business idea in confidence, and the fact that you are outing it on this podcast is absurd.
It's so funny to me. And the thing that I was reading about this, and the reason why you can't bring back eggs from another country is because they haven't been tested for things like bird flu, and yet bird flu is literally killing chickens already in the US. So I'm not sure we're introducing any more risk by people doing this and trying to save $5 on a carton of eggs.
We share the links in terms of where we find these articles, and this is a random site called Remezcla. Like, what news site is this? And I know it's cool because it has it points me to a related article about underwriting the Great British Bake Off TV show that's starting next week. Like, what news site is this? Can we not get like a?
We're getting our news from Time.com, from Bing, who's a sponsor of the podcast, and from Remezcla. So I think we're probably tapping into the three most valuable sources on the internet in terms of truthful news.
This is what happens when you move to Austin. You become a hipster and you can't read normal news.
Well, I sent you the New York Times article. I'm just too poor to afford the paywall. So you'll have to read it for me and let me know what you think. What else are we talking about today? What's on the list? I think that basically covers it for eggs. Unfortunately, that wasn't as exciting as a topic as I thought it was going to be.
that was really deep. Yes, I enjoy eating tacos too. Thank you. That's a total bummer.
Did we talk about CNET?
Yeah, I guess so. CNET and BuzzFeed are kind of related, right? So BuzzFeed came out earlier and said, hey, we're going to start using ChatGPT and AI to write articles and write, fun quizzes about like which Disney princess you are. The stock went up 130% today, which proves that investors are idiots. And related, CNET got in trouble for very similar things where one of their writers was using ChatGPT to generate stories. And evidently what it was doing is it was pulling all of these like very direct plagiarized links from other stories. So that's the kind of crazy thing is like people are using ChatGPT to like do their homework assignments, to write articles. Somebody was saying on Twitter the other day that they got paid $600 as a contributor to write an article about a topic. They put like the request on the topic into ChatGPT, copy and pasted the story, and got paid $600 for that. So like the world of freelance journalism, which has always been a shit show, just got even more shit showy. And so, all of these like companies that are paying third parties, often like these independent writers to write stories, are going to have to navigate this world of like plagiarism and, what it actually costs to produce a story and like how much human editorial rights should actually be given to stories. So it's going to be a new wave of journalism, which is going to be pretty fun to watch. Just like all of these publications get sued for accidental plagiarism because they paid some guy $600 who like put the prompt into something and it stole it somewhere else off the internet.
Yeah. And there was a lot of controversy over this too, because they were posting articles around like cybersecurity tips and things like that. And they were actually factually wrong. That's a weird word to say. Actually, they were factually wrong. And so bad that actually if people followed the tips in these cybersecurity articles, there was risk that these companies would get hacked from doing the wrong cybersecurity protocols. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I don't know the specifics, but I guess it goes back to your point on what is like real and what is made up in the world of AI and how wrong is it. But this feels like one of those things where you should have if you're going to use AI to generate content, you should have a person in the middle reviewing such content. It can increase their throughput of work, but I don't think it can replace the work. And that's what we saw here.
All right. I'd like to introduce a new segment called Girdley's Galaxy Brain, where I can give a Galaxy Brain insight on something. Because I have a really interesting point about this, which is, okay, you think about like, why is plagiarism wrong, period? Like, why do we hate it? So, no, the reason is because it's like, it costs somebody effort to produce that content. So it's like stealing, right? If you steal somebody else's content it's like stealing their work. So plagiarism is wrong because it's like stealing. You look behind you. Was there, Alex, are you worried that somebody was going to come in during Girdley's Galaxy Brain segment? But so what OpenAI and all this stuff is starting to do is actually producing content suddenly becomes effortless. Like there is no real effort there. So the question is like, do we need to rethink what plagiarism is? Like, is it still a problem? Because potentially it doesn't cost anything to produce content, especially like a BuzzFeed article. Like who cares if you plagiarize it? It's crap anyway, and all I have to do is click a button and I have 50 just like it. Like, and you're seeing that happen in schools. Like schools now are like, well, like we don't know how to deal with this. Like, well, okay, well, I guess we'll make you write articles when you're here sitting at your desk. Otherwise, like we're just not sure how to deal with this at all. Or like what's right or what's wrong in terms of all that. Anyway,
But is it
No, it's a good point. And speaking of which, I'm going to introduce a new segment called Big Brains with Baki, and we're going to talk about plagiarism. And wouldn't that be funny if I just told you your exact same thing back and we cut your part out and then we just had like my original idea about plagiarism? That would be perfect.
Okay. It's super meta too, because not only did you just copy my exact idea, you also copied my idea to have an idea about the idea. Like you copied my segment.
That's how the internet works.
And I'm introducing now a new segment called Cohen's Complaints, where I will be seeing both of your complaints at the Cohen court, and we can settle this outside of the podcast.
Oh, would this be a good moment to go again? How Twitter is basically teaching the entire world to plagiarize? Did you hear my rant about that before we click recording?
No.
Well, I mean, so if you go follow like all the big creators on Twitter, they'll tell you to go do the same thing. You hire one of these tools, and there's tons of them, and you can go through and you can click and see what tweets have been popular in the past. And then all you need to do to grow your account, and this is what the gurus will tell you to do to grow on Twitter, is just go take those tweets and either outright copy them and tweet them yourself, or slightly reword them so that they're your thought, and then you misrepresent them as your idea. And that is how a ton of people will tell you how to grow on Twitter.
I'm going to try that.
By the way, it's super annoying. Well, it's how we end up with here's the 18 things I would tell 18-year-old me in life. And it's like, okay, wear sunscreen, take a towel, drink water. Yeah, we got it. Like put something original.
There's a real good business idea here. Yeah. We could just take like English tweets that are trending, just take all of Trung's tweets, translate them into like Spanish and Portuguese, and then grow these accounts into like millions of followers, right? Just taking like exact tweets in one language and just like copying them over to another language. There's like a big arbitrage opportunity there.
You know, on an unrelated note, this is how Mr. Beast grew his YouTube following. Like, I don't know if you all are aware, but he took all of his most popular videos and he hired an entire translation service, production company, like all these things, that he literally made high quality Mr. Beast videos for Spain and for France and for like all these countries. And they have millions and millions and millions of views. And it's actually brilliant. Like, when have you heard of a popular account literally translating their content to produce and ship to other countries? And so, Chris, I think you're onto something. Mr. Beast figured it out first, but you can plagiarize him if your heart desires.
Senor Beast. Well, actually, Elon has announced to Twitter, and he announces a lot of stuff, including self-driving and Cybertrucks and stuff. So your mileage may vary. But he did announce that they're going to start to make Twitter automatically be a universal translator. So you would be following people in Spanish and it would be translated directly to English and you'd have no idea, and vice versa. So I think that's kind of genius. It also, as I see that happening, makes me feel like an idiot trying so hard to get somewhat fluent in Spanish. Because I realize about the moment I get decent in Spanish 5 to 10 years from now, I will be able to just like put a device in my ear and have universal translation. So
yeah, well, knowing how well all the other Twitter product launches have gone since Elon took over, I'm sure this won't have any hiccups involved.
Smooth sailing.
Great.
Speaking of I guess is the question with plagiarism regarding AI, is it the output of the chat AI that is the problem, or is it the fact that it's reading and ingesting all of these publicly available but created written bodies of work and then using that without attribution? Like, is that the problem?
Who cares? Like, do you know who cares about this? Reporters. Okay. Right? Like the guys that are writing like here's the 10 things you should know about whatever. Like, they're the ones that are mad about it.
Can you sue over plagiarism? Like in a real court? Like, not in university, but like in a real court?
If it's copyrighted, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I know about that. So anyway, maybe in that future episode when we have a lawyer on here who will, by the way, tell us to stop doing this podcast because it's going to get us sued.
He'll be like, I have never met 3 stupider people in my entire legal career. You guys consistently give the dumbest advice, the wrongest advice. And you do it so confidently, just like ChatGPT does.
Yeah. Well, tweets are not copyrighted. So we could go steal all these tweets. Like, there's nothing stopping us from doing that. And none of these people are going to sue us, probably.
I just gave you every $199 grow your Twitter account course. That's the whole thing right there. Just copy some shit.
Yeah. And then they
pass it off as your own.
Then they all boost each other's content. If you go look in the replies, it's like, oh, great thread from all the same people that post their own threads.
Alex, let me paraphrase tweet number 3 and what you just said and tell you how great it was. Changed my life. Really, really struck me.
Such a good point.
Click like button. Such a good point. Click like button.
Oh, man. Well, for those of you who are still here, I don't think we have anything else to talk about today, do we? More topics or no?
I beg people for reviews.
Yes.
We beg people for reviews and tell their friends about the podcast.
Yep. Now is the time where we ask you to please review and subscribe and share and do all of the things so that I can once again afford to put food on my family's table.
Close on your Peloton.
If I'm gonna introduce a special offer. If you review the podcast and you screenshot the review and you send it to any of the 3 of us in a DM on Twitter, I, Chris Bakke, will buy you lunch. And by buy you lunch, I mean I will Venmo you $1.50 to go get a Costco hot dog.
Let's go.
That's my offer.
And Girdley sending you a Chili's gift card.
Look, that's
Girdley's going to go create 50 fake review accounts and rack up the hot dogs. I just know it.
You can hire people to do fake reviews in your of your podcast. It just turns out they're all in Bolivia or the Philippines.
Well, Chris,
and you could be the #1 trending podcast in the Philippines.
We're gonna grow whatever means necessary. I may be paying hundreds of dollars to fake reviewers, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think it would be absolutely hilarious if we grew the pod through Costco Glizzy Boys. Sounds like a plan.
The Glizzy gang.
That phrase, I just felt that was the first time I felt old, except when I announced that I was old early in the podcast. So you get keep it real, fam. I'm here for you.
You feel like you're the oldest one, but yet Alex uses Bing and I read Time magazine. So are you really that old? I don't think so. You're fine.
Oh, I know you get Newsweek sent to your house in the paper form.
Oh, did you see that in the background? My Newsweek subscription?
Chris, you look like a lawyer. If we didn't know any better, you would have been our legal counsel on this call with that background.
I know. I have important books behind me.
Have you read them?
God, no. No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again for tuning in. This is episode 4. We'll continue to shitpost live for you every single week until we run out of ideas or no one actually subscribes to us. So thanks again. Like, subscribe. Take a review, screenshot, and send it to our DMs or post it on Twitter. We will reward you with a Costco hot dog. That's it.